Okay, thanks. Happy New Year, everyone. This is the first ACDC of 2026. It is call 172. Let me grab a link to the agenda. I'll put it here in the chat. Today, a couple things to cover, a few quick announcements, then we'll touch on Fusaka, Glamsterdam, and Hegota. So let's get into it. I put these announcements first because I think they should be pretty brief. The first one is just a shout out for a breakout on the task confirmation rule. Let's see, is either Roberto or Mikhail here to say something about that?
Hey, I'm here. Happy New Year, everyone. So, um, there is a fast confirmation rule. There is a PR that is open to the spec, and we actually plan to have a couple of production-ready implementations in CL clients in a couple of months, like by this beginning of March. And in order to facilitate the development of implementations, we want to introduce a breakout calls where we can discuss the progress, the challenges that developers see in implementing the algorithm, also incorporate feedback into the spec, and just basically share the progress on tests and all these kind of things. And these breakout call sessions will be bi-weekly and start on January 20. In the meantime, a bit of an update from the spec and spec development side and testing side. We work on tests currently. So the spec is, let's say it's kind of final, but it will be final after more developers' feedback will be incorporated into it. So we need more eyes from developers. But it is final, it is ready to get implemented. And we are working on tests, and a bunch of tests with a decent coverage will be ready by the beginning of February, by the end of January, some kind of that. So this is our main priority now on this fast confirmation thing. That's probably it. Maybe Will can add anything on that.
No, we'll just be alternating Tuesdays with I forget, maybe a fossil breakout room. So it's going to be the first one starting Tuesday, January, I forget, the 20th, I believe. It's at 2 p.m. UTC. And yeah, we'll be running every other week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you both for the update. So very exciting work there. If you're interested to dig in deeper, join the breakout. Okay, next, I don't know if Nixa's here, but she had a comment. She actually went to the PR, but I guess she and some others have been working on refining this notion of champion. It's a document in the PM repo. I'll just grab a link to the PR here. And I think for now, it's essentially a request for comments. So take a look at that if you would like to contribute there. Okay, so I think those were all the announcements we had. And let's then turn to Fusaka. So we did have this one event that kind of extended over the holidays with the fork, which was BPO2. BPO2 went live, I believe it was the 7th UTC. And generally it went well. We have added more blobs to the protocol. So at least for the blob layer, the DA layer, we are scaling, which is super cool. Anyone have anything they'd like to add to their observations of BPO2?
I have a question actually,
Hmm.
relating to this, slash observation, which is that there was some discussion about, well, people were looking for full 21 blob blocks and eventually did find them, yes. But there was some question of there were maybe some reorgs people found, but I don't know if that they were looked at as whether they were statistically um, unexpected, or were they out of the usual distribution, so to say? And also, was there a particular reason why the 21 blobs was sort of so difficult to find? Why people were saying 19 and 20, but not 21?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Barnabas Soser in the chat, they managed to hit multiple of these. So I do know I was looking right around the fork, and there was an early block that was orphaned, and some of us were looking into it. The latest I saw was just actually it wasn't really so much the bobs with that particular block, but just that it was released pretty late into the slot. So yeah, um, it's definitely something we should be keeping an eye on. That being said, I haven't seen anything that would suggest an issue here with this 21 number in general. I
I
don't know
think
if
there
anyone
was
else
just not
has
enough
anything.
transactions. Yeah, I just feel like there wasn't enough transactions to have multiple 21 blocks, especially during the holidays. The average block transactions also went down significantly compared to before the holidays. So Add is just posting less block transactions during the holidays. I'm expecting it to climb back up eventually, though.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, yeah, I think for me the takeaway is we did this, and yeah, the protocol seems good. We certainly want to do more analysis around these higher blob counts, especially before we think about increasing them further for future BPOs. Any other comments on BPO2? Okay. Then in that case, we'll move to Glamsterdam. So let's see here. A few things with Glamsterdam. Um, yeah, maybe just to play things back, just as we're wrapping it back up from the holidays. So yeah, we essentially closed out scoping for the fork. There are a number of CFI DIPs along with the SFI EIP of EPBS right now. And yeah, that's very good. Sets us up in a good place to keep moving forward with everything. So yeah, that's basically where we're at right now. In terms of EIPs, there are a few updates today, and one thing I suppose the EL wanted to get a temperature check, or yeah, so just a confirmation on this call, and that's with EIP 8070. This is the sparse blob pool EIP. I think I might have missed exactly what the request was, but essentially there was, I believe there's interest to CFI this on the EL side. They wanted to basically toss it back over to the CL side and say, hey, just by the way, any concerns? And if not, we'll go ahead and CFI it. Ansgar, yeah, maybe you can fill us in a bit more.
I mean, you basically already said it. It's the CAP, the Spacebar pool. It's pretty overwhelmingly EL side, but there's at least some elements of it that also touch the CL, and so it just didn't feel right to just CFI it without at least some having the CL in the loop. So really, this is more of a just in case they have any fundamental concerns about the CAP from the CL side, basically please voice them. Otherwise, we would just continue moving this to CFI. So yeah, really just a quick heads up, basically.
Okay. And to be clear, we should CFI this. And if someone has a concern, they should voice it now. Otherwise, it will be CFI'd as of this call. Okay, then let's CFI. Thank you, Oscar. Okay. Two more updates to EIPs in Glamsterdam. The first one here is from Eton. There's a question around the tree shape of how the stable containers feature is implemented. This, I think, is an update to EIP 7688. There's a comment here that goes into more details. But that being said, let's see, is Eton on the call? It's probably better if you just give us an
Yeah,
overview. Oh yeah, there you are.
I
Take it
hope
away.
this time my mic works again.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Traveling
Yeah,
last
it
time.
sounds good.
So yeah, the shape here is based on a feedback that I received end of last year. If we switch to the right shape, there is an advantage that the later entries in an array are also more to the right in the tree. And that can help with incremental tree construction a little bit. It's a very small change only in the library. The EIP diff is literally this PR. It's just like swapping the order of how the hash is formed. And I just wanted to ask if everyone is okay here or if anyone has a strong opinion to not do that. Otherwise, I would just go ahead with this as the final spec change to this data structure.
Are there any concerns here with backwards compatibility of Merkleization of the other, types or features in SSC? Or is this just contained to stable containers?
It's only for the new stuff.
Okay.
It's all like for the 7688. That's actually the other thing that like I proposed merging it last month, and then I received feedback from POTUS that Justin was working on this big PR to make builders non-validators. I think that one has happened, so I wonder whether there are more blockers there, or like what's the timeline there? When should we go ahead with 7688 and put it in?
Yeah, generally, the process we try to follow is having one EIP at a time. So we would want to get to like very stable devnets with ePBS and then think about sort of promoting CFI EIPs to SFI. That being said, like, yeah, it has been CFI'd, and so, now is the time to have the conversations we're having now to iron out, all these different details. And that being said, there are multiple questions here in the chat. Just, yeah, hearing more about pros and cons. Yeah, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, the pro is like it's a very small thing, obviously, like the hash count is the same and so on. The pro is really like that when you create an incremental tree construction, similar to what we had back in the deposit contract snapshot, that you can sort of continuously collapse all the trees as soon, like you only have to track like a boundary that sweeps from left to right through the list, right? And you can continuously collapse what's on the left side because new data is only added to the right of the tree. That's the advantage there. The downside is that it makes it a tiny bit more complex to think about generalized indices, like when you really have this low level view of it. For example, making a multi-proof, it makes it a tiny bit more challenging to get it right. But I mean, it's really a small con and a small pro. Like we can also like not do it and everything would also be fine. But given that we don't have any specs that use it yet, I think we should go ahead and just do it the more future-proof way. Streamable, it can be streamable. Like it depends how you make the protocol. Like it's it's not made in that way. It also doesn't affect serialization, right? So, but yeah, if you think about streamability, having the continuous data more closer together in the tree is the slight pro that we get. But like it's only like the number of hashes doesn't change, right? So it's like just mirroring it.
Okay. I think in terms of moving forward, if there are no other questions at the moment, I would suggest we take feedback to the PR that you linked here. This is to the IPs. Let's see.
Yeah, like maybe SSC channel, and if there is no opposition in a week, then I'll just go ahead, I think.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Okay, so yeah, jump into the SSC channel on the ETH R&D Discord if you want to discuss further. Thanks. Okay. Next up, POTUS had a proposal here to add some notion of when a node can detect censoring. And that then goes into, I think it was the fork choice. Yeah, POTUS, would you like to say more?
Sure. So I want to propose a change in the engine API, which is very much close to what we already have. So today, the EL, when we request a local payload, when we're about to propose, the EL has a Boolean that says there's pin censoring on the chain. You can use it however you want, but CLs can use this to take that block instead of the builder's block. So what EPBS gives us is a better version of this, which is when we send a new payload for validation to the engine replies with valid, syncing, accepted, whatever it is, and then also adds a Boolean that says this block was censoring according to my view. And then the CL can use this because now the CL has information of who was the builder that built that block. And then the CL might use it to blacklist that builder, not request bits from them, blacklist is temporarily, whatever it is. So that will be up to clients to make it configurable by the operator. But the actual change that I'm requesting is to have this extra Boolean on the engine API on the call for new payload. Most of the of notify new payload. Most of the changes would have to be on the EL side to make that decision and say this was censoring or not. And these changes are mostly already worked out on clients because of the way of satisfying the inclusion list for fossil. So this would be mostly about like, have they seen transactions that were in the mempool for long enough, and those transactions could have been included in this block and they weren't included, and then the EL can say this block was censoring or not, for example.
I feel like we discussed a Boolean like this in the Engine API in the past. I guess that's not currently in the Engine API.
I'm sorry, we discussed what?
A Boolean like this. I thought.
It is already, and it is implemented. It is implemented in Nethermind, and Prism already takes this into account. I think other clients already do this too. But this is implemented in the only way that we can do this now, which is in the call to get block, which is only the proposer that can actually make a local decision right there when they're proposing. This change is much more drastic in that I'm proposing to have this Boolean now in the call to notify new payload. This happens for every validator on every single block. So validators can keep track of which builders are censoring for every block, because now they have this visibility that before they didn't have.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Tony, your hand's been up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a good idea because today, how the mempool works, it's not standardized over clients. So, for example, we had different transaction size limits over different clients. We also had different minimum tips that different clients had implemented. So, notify new payload is fully deterministic over different nodes today, and this would basically mean some dynamic info that is very much node dependent and even dependent on the configurations and flags you use would suddenly become part of the response. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is a good idea. For example, what could happen is that I would allow larger transactions for my node because I run a certain client, and then I would perceive every other block as being censoring just because they don't include those very large transactions. And also as a builder, I would have no insight when I would be blacklisted. So it's very much, I would have to wait until
the next registration of that validator to even figure out that I was blacklisted.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting proposal. Are there any further comments right now or questions? Otherwise, put us at ask where you'd want to continue the conversation.
I think I'll propose the same thing on ACDE because most of the changes would be on the engine on the EL, and then after that we can just, I mean, these discussions are being held now on the EPBS channel. I think that's a good channel to continue.
Okay. Yeah, I at least want to think a bit more, and also with respect to what Tony said, just all the different implications of doing this. Great, thank you. Okay, I think that was everything for Glamsterdam. Any other points for Glamsterdam? If not, we'll move to Hegota. Okay. Great. So, like I said, we're in a pretty good place with scoping of Glamsterdam, and then we introduced the headliner process to move forward with Heza and Hegota. So, as a quick reminder, there's an overview of the process and the current timelines on this ETH Magicians post. Let me grab a link that's there in the chat. And essentially, we are moving forward with scoping Hegota. And to begin, we have headliner proposals. So the way that this works, it's very similar to the headliner process we introduced with Amsterdam. Essentially, starting today for about a month, we'd have a proposal period. So the way this works, again, very similar to Glamsterdam, you should have a proposal post on these magicians, tag it with this Hegota tag, and then bring this proposal to some ACD call. Again, pick the relevant layer. And yeah, then the way it would work is by having the post and then also, a conversation, let's say, on ACD about it. That would be the formal proposal for that particular EIP as a headliner. And this process will run for, again, like I said, about a month. Then we'd move into discussion and selection for the headliner. So we're just starting this process today, so I don't know if there'll be that much to talk about. That all being said, yeah, following the process we kind of had laid out for Glamsterdam, there's this notion of fork focus or the theme to the fork. I wanted just to, sort of respect that part of the process. And if anyone would like to chime in around what they think the fork focus or theme should be, we can start that conversation today. Again, if you want to say something, let's keep it short. I think ultimately, this information is helpful. But yeah, I don't think we should get too caught up on exactly what the theme is. As again, I think most of us have a pretty clear idea of different EIPs we might want to move forward with for Hegota. So would anyone like to say anything about the theme briefly? Oscar?
Yeah, maybe the only thing I wanted to say from more the EL side, I think sometimes there are hard forks where it naturally lines that EL and CL are focused on like things that have one integrated bigger theme to it. I think that is the case with Glamsterdam, for example. I think that could still happen with H-star. We should be open to that, but I don't think there's any reason to be too adamant about trying to bias a fork in that direction. And I so far at least don't think it's clear that that's where we will be going with H-star. So I think, yeah, themes maybe one of those things where like if it's not apparent that we naturally have it for a fork, it's fine to maybe just not overforce that as a lens.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay, Yeah, if anyone would like to add any more on this point, I would suggest going to this ETH Magicians post that I linked and just adding a comment there. And otherwise, yeah, I think that was most of what I had today. Again, this is kind of more of an announcement that we're starting the process. Just to be clear, proposals have to be made before the 5th of February of this year. So what that looks like again is like I was saying, where you need to have an ETH Magicians post up and then also have presented it on an ACD call. And the way this works is the deadline here would be by, I think it's an ACDC on February 5th. So yeah, again, you have a month, and from there, we will keep the process moving. I think that's about all we should touch on today. Would anyone else like to add any comments or have any questions? Is that a theme, Marius, that you would like to talk about or have in the meta?
It was more of maybe a topic that we can discuss, because I feel like this is going to have a lot more focus in 2026. And since we still have like an hour left, I think it would be nice to talk a bit about CL hardening. I know there's been a lot of work done in the last year, and I'm very curious to hear from consensus layer clients how they feel about CL hardening, so that we don't get these kind of issues that we got on the testnets for Pectra and so on. So I don't know if we have time to talk about anything. I think CL hardening would be like a good topic to talk about.
Sure. Yeah. Would anyone like to speak to that? Any client team? POTUS?
Perhaps not hardening per se, but one thing we could coordinate is into trying to schedule DevNets for something that some clients already have implemented, which is starting checkpoint syncing from a non-finalized checkpoint and trying to socially decide if we have a couple of finalized checkpoints, this is final and we just go, or if we have known finalized checkpoint, but we're very forward, this is the final checkpoint and we're just gonna decide that the network is this, meaning socially recovering from an invalid finalized checkpoint is something that we haven't rehearsed and we do not know how to do. And in particular, Prism hasn't even implemented this. So we could at least set a timeline or start focusing on how to implement and how to test this.
Yeah, you mentioned like multiple finalized checkpoints. Is that the scenario, or is it an invalid finalized checkpoint, a singular one?
So I mean, the two most important ones would be no finalization and we're forked. And the other one is we have finalized an invalid checkpoint, something like what happened already in a testnet, and we cannot recover from that. So in finalizing an invalid checkpoint and not finalizing at all, and we need to just choose one branch. Otherwise, we're gonna go into like inactivity leaks and then split eventually the chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we did finalize an invalid checkpoint, we'd have to manually recover from that. Presumably some flag that says, hey, when I go process the network, ignore this, even though you see it as finalized.
Yeah,
We
so
need infrastructure
that's been
for clients
implemented.
Okay.
That's been implemented on every client, like blacklisting blocks. It's been implemented on every client, but if we go back to the situation in which we had on testnet, that we would slash a bunch of clients because of a bug, because they would surround themselves. I mean, we had a bunch of clients that were deadlocked in that situation. This requires social interaction, and then even just continuing on the other branch, which was valid. We just don't know how to do this today. So finding a solution for that would be nice.
I agree. I also don't know if the people here today are prepared to get into this much further. But yeah, that is a good point. This is one thing to be, very concerned about. This is kind of, I think, a pretty extreme scenario. I imagine Marius also had less extreme scenarios in mind, just around, how clients are resilient just to different things on network. Even before, bad finalization, just various, DOS vectors or syncing and non-finality in different scenarios like this.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Like when I talk to unfortunately, we didn't have a good time in the last couple of months to have like these bigger group discussions between EL and CL. But when we talked in Berlin, it was like one of the major through lines was that the CL teams feel kind of rushed, and they would like to focus more on security. They would like to focus more on hardening. They would like to focus more on exercising these code paths. And I'm just wondering how much of that has already happened. And if I don't know, it doesn't seem to me to be that big of a problem if no one no one feels like speaking up on the call about it. But maybe technical debt. I'm just wondering what the current thinking is on all of these topics right now.
I know we all have a lot of calls, but we could have a formal breakout for this. That might be a nice way to move forward. Any other client team want to speak to this? Otherwise, I'm not sure there's more to say today.
I just wanted to say that I mean, the recent goals or vision is to have like a 2 hard forks per year, and this is like a different direction of of what Maris is saying, and I don't think that there is that much time and focus left after the actual features development to focus a lot on technical depth, cleanups, security stuff and so on. So yeah, I think this is at least for the small teams, this could be one of the reasons why it's really hard to find the time to do something else apart from building new features and just catching up with the development in terms of the features.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the trade-off there that we're all very keenly aware of. Tying this back. I missed that if someone said something.
I wanted to dovetail in the discussion about pushing the BPOs, looking at blob consumption. They're not necessarily necessary at this particular moment, and they're relatively easy to turn on. But not having that hang over our heads of like, make sure you're watching your nodes, make sure things are not happening. That also kind of plays into that pressure that takes away from our focus of being able to develop the features and do other cleanup.
All right. Yeah. So again, there is a trade-off here. Tying this back more to today's agenda, with Hegota scoping, one way to square these two is, as we move forward with scoping, just keeping this in mind, and then having, Hegota be a lighter fork, because then there's, less pressure to develop new features because there are simply fewer of them, and there's more time for all these other things we've been discussing. Okay. Any other comments on this? Marius is asking how people feel about EPBS security. What I would say myself is, again, we have good testing, for the state transition and things like that. There are fork choice changes to EPBS, which are, yeah, more interesting. Miguel?
Yeah, I probably can add on that. If people remember, we have this fork choice compliance testing suite that is not, to my knowledge, is not integrated into any client except for Taku that far, and we are planning to apply to actually catch up with the EPBS changes and introduce them into this testing suite. And from the developer's perspective, it means that developers will have to kind of adopt this testing suite. I don't know how much of time and efforts and engineering efforts it will require from the development perspective. It obviously depends on the client and client design. But this is something that should help a lot with testing the fork choice changes. So yeah, that's just from the testing front and from the in the application to EPBS.
Yeah, that's a good call. Given the change of the PBS, this is probably a very good time to double down on that set of tests. Notice?
So EPBS has been on the discussion for until like not long ago on whether or not we will have certain features like trustless payments and so. And then we decided at the very last minute to make a rather big change, which is not making the builders validators. And we already know that there's some bugs there. We already know that there's some bugs at the protocol level on how to handle deposits, for example, which is kind of natural. The PR just merged last week. So we expect to continue finding this kind of bugs for a while until we actually do go into interop.
By the way, yes, I didn't mention that. We also kind of aiming to use model-based testing that we use for the fork choice stuff, also for the state transition, for the EPBS scope, for the whole EPBS scope. So we'll just give it a try.
Okay. Yeah, I think these are all good things to have on our mind as we move forward into the new year. And we think about Glamsterdam and Hegota. Any other comments today? Okay. If not, anything else that was not on the agenda? If not, I think we wrap up early. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Happy New Year.